quickly as we can, we'd like to turn the floor over to City and Town Manager, Dominic and Carrie.
All right, so Dominic and I talked earlier today, and we wanted to start by emphasizing something perhaps that we all are aware of, but that we currently do a lot together. Maybe not as the same entity, but we, for instance, back each other up quite extensively in public works. And it goes both directions. I mean, even this past winter, as some of our residents might have seen, we briefly had to use a city plow truck because we had 2 or 3 things go wrong and there was a storm coming. So we support each other pretty well in DPW and have for quite a while. And so that also includes stormwater. Stormwater is something that is going to get more important as we move forward, but we shared a regional stormwater education program. We share things like grants, and we are better off for it because it's less expensive. The library, obviously, and fire department. We both had talked. We back each other up seamlessly, and the staff we currently have seems to work really well for all of our residents. Grants, and in general, any grant, you know, if it has any project and across the board, if it's near a border, we seem to work well by making it a collaboration, which increases our chances of success for grants. So, and the last one we noted was recreation, and we both feel, you can maybe explain it too, but it's working really well right now that residents can seamlessly go to any city rec program. They like it. It works for your program as well, and it's just the St. Albans St. Albans Rec Department.
Yeah, I think it works great. It's terrific.
So despite what some people recall first, maybe not first, but second, we believe that the 2 municipalities are working pretty well together to the benefit of our citizens. What else you want to add to that?
So I can't top that.
Well, we talked about it, and we're both gonna.
That's great.
So I guess if you have any questions, you can shout out, or if there's something else we forgot that you want to talk about, I'd be happy to.
Do we have any questions for either of our managers? We have Chief Taylor here to provide a community policing update. As we know, both municipalities are served by the same police department, so we thought it'd be a good opportunity to allow the chief to speak on any efforts that bleed into both sides of the border.
So I need some copies of some handouts, I only have a dozen of them.
Okay.
But I thought that maybe we could talk just briefly. These are things you probably already heard me talk about regarding street crimes, but this is probably the most successful project that I've been involved in at least the latter part of my career. It's now being replicated in Rutland, it's being replicated in Derry. We call it street crimes, it doesn't have to be called that, it just is called that. And the town and the city are equally in. The town pays for one of the people who are in that unit, and the city pays for the other. And I'm really pleased to say that I looked at the numbers through the end of June. They've done 695 assists to patrol personnel and detectives, and that's because 99% or maybe 90% of our crime is really related to substance abuse in some way, whether it's drugs or whether it's alcohol. So when we have a string of car breaks, street crimes investigates that, because most of the time we're going to discover that that was somebody looking for money, some quick money to pick up additional drugs. But anyways, that's the reason for that. They've made 160 arrests. That's an average of 9 arrests a month. They've conducted 290 motor vehicle stops. They've written 117 tickets and issued 197 warnings. They've conducted surveillance on 140 occasions at various locations in the town and the city. They've executed search warrants 14 times. 3 of the people, the cases they made were adopted by the U.S. Attorney's Office and are being prosecuted there. Recently, the Rob Toy case was one of the ones that comes to mind. There's some straw purchases with guns and gangs out of Boston. That was a case that was developed by the Street Crimes Unit and handed off. And of course, probably everybody recalls that they intercepted 3 pounds of crack cocaine in one shipment coming into the city. I will be the first one to tell you, before seeing that, I'd never seen 3 pounds of crack cocaine. That's a lot of crack cocaine. When you consider that it's sold by little tiny nuggets for up to $20. And again, I just remind people that it takes, they're 28.8 grams in an ounce, and obviously 16 ounces in a pound. So you do that times 3, but then you gotta remember they're gonna step on that. So they're gonna cut that probably by as much as 50%. So that's the amount of crack cocaine that you're talking about. And that came in from a large metropolitan area south of us. But anyways, they seized 4 pounds of crack cocaine so far, 4 grams of meth, 105 grams or 3.6 ounces of heroin. I can't even give you a number for how many pills that they seized. I'm not sure they're counting them because in some cases they're not even being charged. They seized 1 handgun and $19,727 in ill-gotten booty. So when you catch somebody with drugs and they have money mixed or somehow connected to the drugs, you can seize it. I provided you with a quick view, and I won't bother to read that to you. The 2 things that I did want to tell you though, and it's included in the material you have, is so street crimes is not really unique for us. It's just a different approach. Traditionally in Vermont, we have done what's considered traditional conspiracy cases. And when you do that, it's a lot like fishing with a pole and going out knowing what you're trying to catch and knowing that there's a minimum weight or size before you can keep it. And you have to use a prescribed bait. And that can be very expensive and time consuming. You know, I worked in the Federal Drug Task Force. I can tell you that we would spend weeks on end, months in some cases, and at least a couple of cases were a couple of years, trying to catch people who are dealing drugs in a conspiracy drug case. So what we're doing is more like fishing with a net. We're just swooping through the water, and we get small fish, and we get medium-sized fish, and we get big fish. When you're lucky, you get the big fish. And those are the people that Christina at the U.S. Attorney's Office is more than willing to take for us. And I would tell you that, you know, we all want the same thing. We want these people to either get help and get fixed and stop doing what they're doing or not to be in our communities. So one of the things that we do, and I call it by hook or by crook, is there are people who aren't going to go get help and admit that they have a drug problem until they get arrested. So when they get arrested, what's going to happen is they've got to go to court because we charge everybody. We cite them into court, and the state's attorney's office makes a decision about whether they want to divert them or whether they want to charge them in the regular court system. And in almost every instance that I'm aware of, the first thing they do is decide that they need substance abuse counseling and or rehab. Now I know that that doesn't fix the problem immediately, but isn't that what we're all trying to accomplish anyway? It's a little harder approach. I guess you call it tough love, but they're getting there. So I don't feel bad about the fact that we're arresting them, and we're not discriminating. Doesn't matter if they're a small person involved in it, or medium or large, everybody gets arrested. Everybody gets charged, and it gets sorted out at the courthouse. But anyways, traditional criminal drug investigations require hours and hours, weeks and weeks, and sometimes months and months of investigation, surveillance, manpower, undercover drug buys, and buy money. It's expensive to buy illegal drugs. And there's very little local control over the selection of targets, length and strategy of the investigation, or ultimately the charges that will be filed. That's just a fact of life. And if you look at the second one, it uses that same analogy about fishing with a net versus with a pole. I think this is very successful. We've had people come in and spend time with us, seeing what they're doing and how they're doing it. we have the ability to do something as basic as a knock and talk. If we have legitimate information about somebody who's dealing drugs, and we can't get a case, make a case against them, we can go there in uniform and knock on the door and have a conversation with them about what we have for information. Traditionally, the problem goes away right after we leave. And I'm not suggesting that we're making that up, because I wouldn't be part of that. The orders that my people have are, if they can't engage in anything that's illegal, unethical, or immoral. But they can knock on the door when they have legitimate information about someone dealing drugs and say, I understand you're dealing drugs. And if I haven't shared this with you before, I've done it many times, it's called the knock and talk. And the conversation usually goes like this. No, I'm not. Well, then would you mind if I come in and have a look around? Well, can you do that? Well, I can, if you give me permission. Otherwise, I need a warrant. I think I'll have you get a warrant. Okay, then I'll try to be back. I don't care who you are, that has a very sobering effect on you. And we're serious. If we can come back, we're coming back. So I think it's a highly successful program. I'm really pleased with it. I realize that we can't, you know, when you hit a hot spot when you're fishing, if that's what you liken this to, you're not gonna catch fish forever. So we're doing the best we can. We're trying to make the most of it while we have the opportunity and the ability to do it. And we haven't taken any cases away from anybody else. You know, the cases that should be investigated by DEA or by the state police, we're making the referrals. But it makes me feel a lot better when I go in and out of these businesses every day and they say, you know, at least now I call them, something gets done. Within 2 weeks, I see something getting done. Whereas before, you know, I pass it on to the drug person, they call the task force, and when they get a chance or when they're in the area, they come by, take a look, see what we had. But people never saw anything getting done. So they thought we weren't doing anything. So as the police chief, I feel a lot better about this. I feel like I have direct input. And I'm really proud of what's happened here. I think it's a good thing. I just leave you with this. 2 years in a row now, the numbers are looking like they're gonna forecast similarly, but for the last 2 years, we've averaged about 35 drug overdoses a year. And in both cases, the first year we had 18 overdose, for lack of a better term, deaths, and they were resuscitated with Narcan, all but 4. This last year, 20 of them were fatal overdoses, and Narcan was used, and all but 5 were resuscitated. So it doesn't look like it's declining, it looks like it's just staying the same right now. I'm not depressed or enthusiastic about that. I think we have to do this a little longer than we've already done it to make a deep impact on it. And I think everybody has to make, you know, the medical field has to make inroads, we have to make inroads, and I think we're doing it.
On the news in the last 2 days, there have been reports on the national level that the pharmacies around the country, and the chain pharmacies in particular, have been distributing these oxycodone and other regulated drugs. Do you have ongoing communications with our local pharmacists on who's pulling out?
Yeah, we have a really good network. When you say so, we have a really good network with the pharmacies. They're pretty good at calling us and saying, this guy's in here, or this gal's in here every 2 weeks, and this seems like a lot of painkillers. You know, somebody should take a look at this. We've not had that. I would tell you that the pill problem is not as big right now as it once was in the past, and there are a couple of reasons for that, but one of them is the US has gotten really tight about making crush-proof pills, and they still time dissolve. You know, it used to be that if you crushed up an OxyContin, you could get the full effect of the pill immediately. Well, now it's really hard, you can't crush them, and even if you crush them up, you're still gonna get the delayed reaction of it slowly releasing. So when we see OxyContins, oftentimes they're coming from north of the border, where they don't have the same restraints placed on them.
part of what's helped us in this state with the issue you're talking about too, is we require people, we saw a lot in other states you see is people are saying that the pills are stolen every other day. In this state, they have to pull a case number for that. In our department, their department, I'm sure is the same as we do a little, you don't even have to investigate that. If you call them out on that, those complaints go away, they're not going back for more pills because they can't. The pharmacists won't refill those prescriptions every other day. So that's gone away because the pharmacists they're playing with us, they're helping us with that problem, they're not just refilling prescriptions because they say they're stolen every day. And it's a real problem, that was a real problem for a long time.
Totally,
I think the doctors are doing a better job too.
yes. I'm on heart medication, and I was amazed that it's made in China, and then because it was recalled, it now is being made in India. Where are these pills, the addictive pills, where are they made?
They're made everywhere.
Yeah, around the
Yeah,
world.
I mean,
So when you
right
pick
there in
them
our
up,
town makes a lot of different pills.
no, well, I'm talking about the Oxycontin and that generic of
There
drugs.
used to be a production operation in New York, Champlain, New York, that isn't anymore. So we believed that we were seeing a lot of those pills for a long time, but we haven't seen those in a long time. And we have no idea where they come from most of the time. You know, more and more we see diverted Suboxone, methadone. I hope we don't follow the trend of the county just south of us. I hope that our prosecutor doesn't say we're not gonna prosecute people for diverting those things. Because there's a difference between diverting those things and seeking them out because you need help. I got no problem with people that need help getting help, but most of the people that we're dealing with in those cases are simply selling it for the profit.
Chief, are we seeing an uptick in communities around us if we're starting to push people out?
Yeah, probably, just north of us, there is a community that has experienced a tremendous amount of activity. It didn't have that same problem years ago. And I'm fairly good friends with the Spaldings who recently sold their drugstore over there. And at least their opinion is that they see and hear a lot more of that activity in their community than they ever have before. The one dilemma, and I think I warned everybody before we ever started this, is when one community really tightens up, criminals are a lot like Jello. If you squeeze it in your hand, they'll find openings, and if they find an opening, that's where they're going. And I think that has happened. I certainly heard from the Highgate Board. I've heard conversations from select boards in Georgia, Fairfax, about their belief that they are seeing some of that, people pushed into their communities. And I do feel bad about that, but I come back to that my job is here. And I guess it'd be nice if there were more people to do the job. And if we all did it, maybe we could theoretically push it out of our communities and then the state police could push it out of the state. But there aren't enough of us to do that.
Are you guys good with sharing information, so if something happens?
We are, and if we have a source that's from out of the area, but they operate in the city under our nose, we'll reach out and touch them. We'll go there. We just did it with a case in Highgate. We did it with a case in Georgia, across from the school. Those people were dealing those drugs here, but their base was in another community. So we went after them anyway.
Thank you.
Chief, what's your gut feeling? I know we talked about the overdoses and whatnot, but the gut feeling, are you seeing a decline within the city and town limits? Do you have a feeling one way or the other?
No, and I do think that it's time that we should make the sale of fentanyl a much more serious offense than what it is now. Because in almost every case where we're seeing overdose deaths, fentanyl is one of the drugs that is being used to cut the cocaine, or to begin with, or the heroin. And they're using it for both, by the way, now. You know, there's a lot of cocaine around, much more than we saw for a long time. And I think it's because they realize there's a lot of pressure out there and eyes looking for the heroin. We're starting to see some meth coming in from out of states, not necessarily being manufactured here. But we're seeing more meth, we see a lot of cocaine.
The overdoses aren't as high, I don't think, because everybody's got Narcan too.
Yeah,
We're not called to a lot of it now. Family members of addicts have Narcan, every first responder has Narcan, friends of addicts have Narcan. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, it's keeping them alive, but we're not even hearing about a lot of these overdoses.
Do you have, off the top of your head, either one of you, a quick story as to any successes? You talked about bringing them to, arresting them and, you know, having them change their ways. Are there any that come to
I
mind?
wish I did. I wish that I had an anecdotal story that I could tell you. I don't. I hear things, and I've heard that that is the case, at least in a handful of cases. But I couldn't name somebody specifically that did that.
I can tell you a program that's running right now that is working, without giving names, but I can tell you that the Thrive team, who we have members in that, as do you. So the Thrive team is made up of a panel of people that was designed originally 2 years ago. We had the meth cases that are running rampant in Franklin County. And it was designed around parents who had children that were in fear of getting, after they get arrested, in fear of going into DCF custody. So a panel was designed of law enforcement, DCF personnel, doctors, medically assisted treatment personnel from the hospital, to look at parents that were arrested and looking at a way to keep their children with them, meaning they had to go into rehab for their addiction problem. So since that panel was designed and put together and formulated 2 years ago, we've used this a number of times. So if somebody's arrested right now, on the street right now in front of us, and taken into custody, and we knew they had children, we could call up Linda White now, wasn't Linda Lucier, and she would send herself, or somebody else would come right to the barracks or to the PD, and try to talk to that person who is now taken into custody and to agree to go into rehab, and with some conditions. It wouldn't negate their arrest, it wouldn't do any of that. The criminal process would still go through, but it would fast track their way into rehab with the hope that they would be able to maintain custody of their kids. And that program now is running 2 years. We've had some successes. I get the reports on that monthly. We've had some people that have been in that program 2 years now that are still clean. But again, the leverage there is the kids, and that's the whole leverage. It's trying to show the parents that there is a way, rather than lose your kids tonight, right now, there is a way to keep the kids.
We are negotiating to embed one of those people into the street crimes unit.
Yeah.
So that every time they do something, everybody would have access to somebody to talk to about how they might get in rehab rather than jail.
That's the goal, is to get, like I said, we have to have somebody right hot on the spot, because the deal is, whenever you arrest somebody for a drug crime, like Chief alluded to earlier, the minute they get in front of their attorney or they get in court, the first the attorney says is, tell the judge you're going to rehab. That's simply their way of getting the lesser sentence, or in their eyes getting a lesser sentence. The goal is to get that rehab prior to that, so they want to go rehab. So the leverage is usually the kids or something like that. So if we get an embedded person, so the night of the arrest, when their emotions are high and they know what they did is wrong, or they think they did is wrong, they want to change their ways, that's when we want to hit them with the option of giving them some help.
Yeah, I would leave you with this thought. You know, we talk about a support system, so there has to be help, there has to be medical help, and there has to be prevention, and there has to be treatment, and there has to be enforcement. What most people are unaware of is that the hat that the people who wear changes from time to time. So sometimes it's getting arrested that is the education that you needed, because nobody else was getting your attention. And sometimes it was, you go to your own doctor and your doctor calls you out on what he or she suspects and says, hey, this is not normal. There's a problem here. So suddenly they're the police instead of the doctor, but they can go back to being the doctor right after they do that. So we all wear different hats all the time, but the goal really is to try to stop this, and we recognize we can't arrest our way out of this. But it is one avenue to get people to attention and help.
Chief, I was wondering, with all the arrests you've had, both of you gentlemen, is there a particular age limit or anything like that
We just arrested two people from
way you're
Sears.
narrowing it down, background, age limit, or?
We just arrested two people from Cedar Street. It's not a secret, there was a press release issued. At least one of those people has been given Narcan 4 times. They've been in the drug business for 8, maybe 10 years. They get arrested, they go to court, they get out, they go right back. So I don't think there is, and I would tell you, those people are in their 40s.
Wow. I just,
So it's not like a 16 to 19-year-old group, it's bigger than that.
What about, are these people, are they gainfully employed at all? I mean, I just can't really understand how
Many of them
How-
are.
how- a person can afford
There's a lot of
that.
closet addicts out there that are gainfully employed and carry on a regular job.
Yeah,
But there are also the ones that you read about in paper more often than not that are doing the burglaries and whatnot. But there are several people that are living normal looking lives that are drug addicts.
Yeah, I would say it cuts both ways, sir. I'm not sure that, it's really hard to define. You know, people say sometimes, you know, what's a bad guy look like? I don't know, what's a
Yeah,
bad
true.
guy look like?
Yeah.
You know, this is a problem that seems to have crossed socioeconomic barriers. It's not just poor people, it's not just rich people, it's not kids, it's not adults, it's a blend of all of those things.
Chief, I was lucky enough to do a ride along with the street crimes unit last winter, early spring. And we were going down Federal Street, and an officer pointed out, 3 months ago we made a stop here. There was a woman who had a job in a business that you would know, and she had some illegal items on her, drug paraphernalia, and we arrested her and booked her, and when we got her back to the station, she dimed on, she told, you know, she gave some information to the police and it turned into a much larger arrest. And that work is really what the street crimes unit seems to be all about.
Yeah, they're trying to do everything they can. If they can work a case and make it grow and go after the people who are responsible for muling into our communities, that's what they're gonna do.
It just seemed like an example of an arrest was made of somebody that was at the low end of this, a small fish. That person was helped with rehab and in turn was able to provide the police department with information that may have helped other addicts lose their supply and seek rehab. And it brought some people to justice. And I don't know that we would have that if a lot of people in this room, namely the chief, didn't bring this program to light and we didn't fund it. I think it's been highly successful. I want to thank you for it.
Unless there's another question, I would like to leave you with this thought. People say to me all the time, 4 times, you gave somebody Narcan 4 times, that's too much. And I think, I know the parents, the fathers and the mothers of some of these children who have died from overdoses. And if it were your child and the police were there and they had the ability to do something that might save their life, would you want some silly rule that said, nope, he's already had it twice, can't give it to him the 3rd time? None of us want that. And those parents are just as sincere, even though they lost their child. They're as sincere as every one of us. I'm never gonna be the person who says, nope, we're not gonna do that. That'd be just a bad thing to do.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to give an overview of what you're seeing maybe statewide or?
I mean, I would say this, like I've said in multiple meetings, is whatever you're seeing here is what we're seeing statewide, what we're seeing nationwide. It's all the same, all translates and follows everywhere. I was just here to support Chief, need anything, but, no, it's all here. It's all the same exact stuff, it's just per capita. The meth is coming in pretty good right now, it's coming from down south, it's being shipped in, I'm sure it's being manufactured a little bit here, but we're not finding anything serious, but it's coming in. Coke is on the rise, heroin's going down. I think it's because we're looking for heroin more, fentanyl is scaring the hell out of people, but cocaine is here, and it's for whatever reason right now, so.
Cocaine had peaked out a while back, right, and then
It always goes ebbs and flows, so I think that, well, you know, for one reason, cocaine is higher now, heroin's low, but it'll probably level out again, but it is back. But fentanyl is now going into the cocaine, so we'll probably see that level out again. People start overdosing on it. So think about Narcan only revives you from opiate-based overdose. If you overdose, right now on cocaine, it's not going to revive you. It's only going to revive you from opiates. So unless they come up with something Narcan-like substance that'll bring you back from cocaine, it's not going to help anybody. So we'll see, but right now, we're not, even our task force, who does it, that's all their sole purpose in our department, they're not finding heroin like they were a year ago either. And that translates right to what Green County's finding the same thing. So, but our biggest scare in my eyes are how meth is a real problem that it takes a foothold up here. Just like northern New York right now, it's really bad, especially towards the Great Lake area. New Hampshire is really bad, so if it's in those two areas, it's here, so there's no way it's around, it's not right here. So.
And are those resources, the initial beginning of that, is that big city or is that?
No, neither of those are in big cities. It's just right in small areas around us. And New Hampshire has a really active task force over there, but for whatever reason, they're finding meth almost daily. Why, again, over there, not here, I don't know. They are. We've seen traces of it. 2 years ago, we had much more of it over here. Hopefully we don't, but I'm sure we'll see some signs of it.
It's a crazy thing, and, you know, it doesn't seem like it's ever gonna end. I mean, I can remember I was a 19-year-old kid in the Army, pulling guard duty on a flight line, and watching C-130s come in, and they're unloading body bags from Vietnam. Well, the first thing that would happen is the MPs would pull up in their Jeeps with dogs, and the dogs would sniff the body bags because that's how they were getting, you know, drugs back into the United States, is in body bags.
It's a
Terrible.
multi-billion-dollar industry. It's a shame, but
Chief, Mo, thanks for coming in.
yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you taking time
No
and
problem.
updating us.
Well, I just had to change the cause of fatalities. There's been 2 fatalities on the interstate between here and Georgia, I think. Is there any specific reason why in the past month that we've had?
So the most recent one, last Wednesday, I think it was, that was in Williston Barracks area. I don't know the
Was
cause
that
of
further
that.
down?
I haven't even heard. I don't know if speed was, I don't have any idea what the cause was of that. So I really couldn't tell.
Okay.
The traffic's high, but I'm sure they'll come up with the cause, but I just don't know the answer to that.
I think it was weather,
Weather?
Could have been
and
too.
that came from a couple of friends of mine who were troopers.
Could be, we were tied up with the quarry thing on the same time as that. So I don't know.
Thank you, I'm gonna excuse myself,
Thank
I'll
you.
share something else.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I would ask if the council and the select board would indulge Brendan and I to jump around on the agenda without being too official. If that works, we'll get started. We've asked 2 individuals come in tonight. I think we're very fortunate to have our community represented by these 2 individuals. This came about mainly from the fact that the softball team 2 years ago, when I first got elected mayor, the girls hockey team won the state championship, and we did a impromptu parade for that team. Came through town, they had an escort with the police and fire, and took them around the park and headed back out. But that was at 11:30 at night, and it didn't get a whole lot of attention. But then this past June, the BFA girls softball team won the state championship, and the town and the city combined to have fire trucks and police to escort them through town, and it turned out to be quite the event. People came out of the restaurants on Main Street to applaud and really recognize that. And the more I thought about it, that's great for team sports, but we have some individuals in other activities. And we're having this discussion tonight because of the 2 individuals that are here. We're proven to be the best in the state for athletics, but we will continue this process for those in drama, music, and those who have, and others in other categories who have proven to be very successful. I think it's important that we recognize those individuals. They are part of our community, and I think we will work hard to recognize those individuals as often as we can. So basically, we have 2 proclamations that we'd like to present. I will do one, and Brendan will do the other one. So I will start with the first one, and if you bear with me while I read the proclamation. And these are from both city and town as well. The governing bodies of St. Albans Town and St. Albans City would like to recognize the efforts of Brooke Hodgman, 2019 graduate of Belfry Academy and son of Chris and Stephanie Hodgman. Whereas Brooke played organized hockey from the age of 4. This may have a bearing, but he had me as a coach, so let's keep that in mind as we move forward through this. Until he was a freshman in high school and made the transition to Nordic skiing his sophomore year at BFA. And whereas it was during his inaugural year of Nordic skiing that Brooke qualified for the Vermont U16 ski team for New England's, and in the following 2 years dedicated himself to the sport of Nordic skiing and trained year-round in an effort to be the best. And whereas during Brooke's senior year, he was given the opportunity to ski under the colors of a regional club team, yet he chose to ski for BFA, citing his strong commitment to publicly sponsored sports, community pride, and equal access. And whereas in March 2019, Brooke was named state champion for the state of Vermont in classic Nordic skiing. It was at this two-day event that Brooke had the fastest combined times of any skier in Division 1 or 2, beating the nearest competitor by 20 seconds. Brooke is BFA's first Nordic skiing state champion in the history of the school. And whereas Brooke is involved in his community by representing BFA at Boys State and being a charter member of BFA's Rotary Interact Club, the group of civic-minded students initiated a local coat drive for those in need, in addition to organizing a ski exchange to raise money to assist in making skiing more affordable. And whereas Brooke completed a PSA to help encourage children that are diagnosed with epilepsy to continue to live life to the fullest, just as he does. And whereas Brooke has received a number of educational, leadership, and athletic awards during his time at BFA, Brooke will be studying physics and pre-med at St. Michael's Honors College and skiing on the Nordic ski team. Brooke will be entering college after already accumulating 18 college credits. And now, therefore, it is with great honor that the St. Albans City and the St. Albans City Council and the St. Albans Town Select Board recognize Mr. Brooke Hodgman for his outstanding contributions to Bellisfree Academy and the community of St. Albans. We thank you for your commitment to our community, given under my hand and Brendan's the seal of City of St. Albans and the Town of St. Albans on this day, July 2019.
Stand in the middle?
Tim.
Go ahead. Would you like to hold your? Go up to the front.
We're gonna let the officials where you want to be.
Wherever you need. Come
We're gonna take our
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I would just add, so we'll frame these and get them to the families tomorrow. I would just add that I had the opportunity to speak to one of Brooke's coaches today, and he could not say enough good things about Brooke and his their ability to work with him and coach him. They said there's in terms of an all-around individual, Brooke, Mr. Kane could not say enough about you.
Would like to recognize also that the school district, Maple Leaf Run, is also part of that team.
Yeah, Maple Run puts out an excellent quality of education. Now, I'm glad to be here with Tim. I would like to say before reading this proclamation that St. Albans City is lucky enough right now to have a mayor that lives and breathes St. Albans. Tim is the most community-minded individual that I've ever met. I'm lucky to be able to work with him. I appreciate his efforts into making this a reality, along with the softball team parade. That was just amazing to watch from even social media. It was huge. And to have a community-oriented individual like yourself at the helm of that municipality is only beneficial to both sides. So thank you for everything that you do. So I have a proclamation recognizing Mr. Trey Paquette. So I'll read that out to everyone, and we'll have a presentation. The governing bodies of St. Albans Town and St. Albans City would like to recognize the efforts of Trey Paquette, 2019 graduate of Bellisfree Academy and son of PJ and Carrie Paquette. Whereas Trey began running track at the age of 10 through the St. Albans Recreation Department and continued his career through his senior year at BFA, and whereas it was through the years of hard work that paid dividends as Trey was crowned an indoor state champion for the 50 and 300 meter, and outdoor state champion for the 100 and 200 meter, and 4x400 relay. And whereas during Trey's high school career at BFA, he beat a 60-year-old record previously held by Ollie Dunlap. Congratulations, that's impressive. In 1959 for the 200 meter, held the Essex Invitational / New England Qualifier 200 meter record, broke a 4x400 meter relay record, and was second all time in the BFA 100 meter dash. And whereas in 2019, Trey received the Franklin County Frankie Athlete of the Week 2 times and was named Burlington Free Press Athlete of the Week. Trey also received the 2019 National Guard Student Athlete Award and the 2019 Track and Field Coaches Award. And whereas Trey is involved in his community and has volunteered for the Special Olympics and other various community events. He also participated on the St. Albans swim team, BFA soccer, the Northern United Summer Soccer Club, and Sprint City Track Club. And whereas Trey will be studying business at the University of Vermont, where he will continue his running career and is committed to living in the UVM wellness environment. And now, therefore, it is with great honor that the St. Albans City Council and St. Albans Town Select Board recognize Mr. Trey Paquette for his outstanding contributions to Bellows Free Academy and to the community of St. Albans. We thank you for your commitment to our community. Congratulations. Get that frame for you. We'll get that frame for you. Okay.
My friends ain't coming today. So, just quickly, congratulations to Brooke and Trey. I don't think any of us around the table realize how much effort goes into what you did to get to where you are in terms of training, weightlifting, all of that. Thank you for representing our community. We appreciate it. And we hope we have many more of these in the future.
Could we also thank their parents for supporting their children?
Do you know that for a fact?
We are assuming, but.
Sorry, Terry's not here. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Agenda item number 5 is probably the most important topic of discussion tonight. Probably second most important discussion tonight. Congratulations. Thank you.
Good job, Max.
So we're here to talk about how to collaborate.
Before you jump on that, I just want to make sure for the camera as much as anything, we know that there's other individuals that have done very well this year. We have not, we didn't have the time on the agenda, but in future meetings, we will be recognizing others. So I share that to stem some phone calls maybe. And
well, if you have a suggestion, if a member of the public has a suggestion for somebody to be recognized, reach out to Tim and myself, please.
so,
That would be.
sorry to interrupt.
No, that was definitely worth it. We're here to talk about how we can collaborate into the future. We have opportunities in front of us to collaborate on stormwater, bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and economic development. I'd like to kick this discussion off by saying, it's my vision for this discussion that we be somewhat informal and really have at the heart of it a discussion. And it's worth noting that our municipalities are going to be totally unable to agree on every particular issue that ever comes to light. But if we can cooperate on the issues that we do agree on and it benefits both sides, we're foolish not to. And I think that's the big driving reason why we're here. There are issues that we can't tackle together. It's just not possible right now. But there are a lot of issues that we could work together and see some serious benefit from. And it's always worth noting that a community of 13,000 people that speaks with one voice on a particular subject is much more likely to receive help at the state level, either through grants or legislative changes, than two separate communities of 6,000 plus. So that should be a big part of our focus moving forward, is how we could collectively work with our friends at Maple Run and whatever other local institution we can work with to affect change to benefit St. Albans. So with that, I'll turn that over to Tim.
So, Carrie, I know that there's some combined stormwater projects going on. Do you want to touch base on that?
I mean, our largest combined stormwater project is one that was required when we were both designated impaired in 2012, and that's our stormwater education program. And I think it's excellent in its ability to grow, and it's scalable. So as other communities come online with the new stormwater regulations, we'll be able to add some people to that program. And so we seamlessly each year come up with different ways to educate the public about that. I think we're each doing separate projects though. Like we have 5 different stormwater projects we're working on right now. I'm pretty sure the city does too, but I'm not sure what they're doing on that end. So stormwater, as far as future collaborations, I think what I was thinking, and I didn't talk to Dominic about this recently, is that at some point we're probably going to need to start some enforcement. So as soon as you start dealing with the regulations and permit requirements of stormwater, you have to check for compliance. And so while that's important, it might not require a full-time person. We maybe could share that person, and maybe share that person even with other communities. So that was one of my reasons for putting this here, because I think we should just keep an open mind that yes, we will have to regulate stormwater, but it might not require a full-time equivalent, a full-time person. But yet it's pretty important to consider.
Is the town considering a stormwater utility similar to what the city has done, or is that?
Right now, we're actually we have a request for proposal that just finished, because we are actually analyzing that in the next few months. We should have that answer or at least a recommendation by the end of the fall to the Selectboard as to what's all the pluses and minuses. And
To provide some information for the council and for you, we had funded our stormwater obligations to the general fund for a couple of years, and had realized that we were not expensing the total amount that we had budgeted very regularly. So we removed a large sum, if not all of that money, from the general fund budget for FY20, and we're using some consulting funds that we left in our budget to evaluate the most equitable way forward. We still want to meet the requirements, we just want to make sure that everybody who has skin in the game is paying their fair share, and that the net effect to every individual property owner is as fair as possible. So that's where we're going. We had an RFP out for a consultant. Hopefully we'll select one soon, work through that, look at all different ways of funding it, and it may end up being that a consultant recommends a utility, it may not. So when we have that answered, I think we should have that discussion, since you already have a utility up and running. That's just my own feeling. I think a lot of cooperation moving forward as far as cost effectiveness goes will be trying to eliminate as much overhead as possible. No duplicate positions, if we can help it. I think stormwater could definitely be out.
So as soon as you brought that up, is there any, I don't have a bulletproof vest on, is there any benefit to having a combined city-town stormwater utility? If you talk about cutting down costs on management and all that. And should we I guess the question is, should we study that combined?
Well, I guess we should test the water with that. I mean, how do people feel about the idea of working together with a utility? And that is, it's a full body utility.
I wouldn't suggest that we try to answer that today, but we
No,
might have
but-
a subcommittee of all of us, of some of us from each municipality, to think it through and come back to us in a month or so.
I don't know that a month, but
2 months, I don't care.
yeah. How do you
I
feel?
guess I'd be looking to council members and select persons as to what your, personally, I think it makes sense. I mean, our runoff ends up on town property at some point,
It would certainly be useful if there was a project that had a lot of stormwater that was very expensive to remediate, and we could use offsets from sites available in the town to repair those sites in exchange for the site in the city not being able to utilize or being able to remediate its own stormwater because of the expense. So, or the dynamics of the lot or the property makes it unavailable to remediate properly. And then we can use offsets by properties in the town that would benefit. The town certainly has more land than the city, and I think it's a practical measure to have both of them working together. And it could happen in the reciprocal, but I doubt it. But it's probably more advantageous for big projects in the city that couldn't remediate.
Yeah, I think that before we can probably answer the question around whether we want to collaborate on the administration of a utility, I think we are both at a point where we're seeing the TMDLs put more and more pressure on us and figuring out cost-effective ways to actually do the projects that are going to limit the amount of nutrient pollution that's going into the waterways. I mean, we share the watershed. So the state's looking at this as, we've got Jewett Brook and we've got Stevens, and we're trying to limit increasingly how much of that nutrient pollution is getting to the lake. If we're able to, at the state level, create the ability for communities to collaborate on phosphorus exchange and have the ability to sort of trade so that we get the most carbon or most phosphorus reduction for the investments that we're making, that's going to allow us to do what Tim's talking about. I think that's like looking ahead of where we are right now with the policy that the state has, I think. But if we're all looking at, okay, where are the projects where we're going to be able to get the best return on our investment in terms of reducing that phosphorus so we meet our TMDL goals, if we're able to work together over time, there are going to be times when the research identifies places in the city where there's a lot of phosphorus from the impervious surface we have, for instance, or they're going to find agricultural non-point sources in the town. And if we're able to work together and spend that money as a watershed rather than as municipalities, we're going to be able to get more bang out of every dollar that we invest.
So how would is there any community, Mike, that you know of that we could point to and say, I don't know of any other joint stormwater utility that covers more than one municipality.
Yeah, we don't work collaboratively across watersheds in Vermont. Because we look at the jurisdictions we have, like the municipalities we have here, and we only operate and we only direct funds into those jurisdictions. And so I think actually we could lead the way. And I've heard people in all political parties at the State House talk about, oh, wouldn't it be great if we were looking at the watersheds? And it's like, well, here we have an opportunity that these municipalities that share these watersheds to potentially be able to be an example of that. So my advocacy would be if we can speak with one voice to Montpelier to let us do under the new regs that are coming out and what's going to flow from that, not to use a too apt an analogy. I think that we'll be able to spend less and get more phosphorus reduction if we work together. But we've actually got to advocate for the ability to do that before we're even able to.
So we don't have the ability to form a joint utility with its own commission with equal representation on both sides.
We probably could say, oh, we'll form a joint utility to spend money. But the question that I think needs to be answered at the state level is, do we have the ability to get credit for the phosphorus that gets reduced in St. Albans town if the city jointly works with you on a project? So on the administrative side, yeah, we could get together and we could task Carrie and Dominic to form the ability to collect revenue and spend it. But the question is, under our permitting structure the way it exists now, would we say get credit for a project that the city paid for that it was actually in the town? I don't think there's a mechanism to do that.
Developers do it now in Act 250. When they take farmland,
Off-site
they
remediation.
offsite remediation in other towns and other communities to preserve farmland.
Yeah.
We're gonna take farmland from one place and the state wants us to put it back, we put it back in a percentage wise in another community. And we preserve that farmland. So it's happening now in other areas of the law. It could happen in this inherited the law.
So do you think it would be advantageous to the town and city to begin working on its own intergovernmental structure and its own utility structure now? And to use that as leverage to lobby Montpelier and our wonderful representatives to introduce the proper.
That's probably step 10, and we're on step 1.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think there's a few more things we'd have to do. The town to see where it's going on its utility, and the sentiments of its public. Then, if everyone wants to do that, then I think we can do it. But we're a ways away from that. But it's something to look forward to.
I think
Yeah.
that we could have our path forward utility versus other mechanism of funding by, I think we were planning to bring something to the public hopefully for March. We have 2 elections next year. Your utility's already been accepted by the public, so it's a matter of whether or not that you can take that vote and lend it to create a St. Albans utility. I think on an issue like this, the money's gonna make a lot of sense. I'm more of a money guy. Michael knows phosphorus better than I do, but I think if we can make it make sense both ways, why not have that be the first big collaboration that this group comes up with? I see, as a younger person coming into the fold that hadn't experienced a lot of the issues that, you know, drove us apart, I think that this is an issue that we need to kind of cut through any type of tense feeling that we have towards one another and say, this is the way forward, it works on paper, we can do it, let's take it to a vote. I don't know about you guys, but I get stopped on the street at least once or twice a week. My wife makes fun of me for it. By town and city residents who say, I'm so glad that you and the mayor are driving people together. Like, these people have been divided for so long, we've missed so many opportunities. I don't want to miss another opportunity if we can help it. So if it turns out that our consultant tells us that a utility is the best way forward and it's the only thing that makes sense for us, I think that's when we come back to the table and say, what do you have for a structure? What are the administrative costs? I don't know. I don't know that it doesn't make sense to tell a consultant right now, right when they're hired, that this is a possibility. Look at what the city has, maybe get some information from Chip, look at your financials and what you're collecting and what your costs are, and see if there's been very many duplicate costs. Because I think a utility could probably be handled by a similar staff as what you have on hand now. I don't know that that's...
This is gonna get the most support from both the communities, because what lies at the end of that lake road is something we're all interested in, all the time.
Right.
And so we're gonna collaborate on anything other than rec and police, this is a big one, I think.
I agree. I'm glad you brought that up. So I think we should take that back to our consultant when we hire them and say, this is an opportunity. We want you to look into it. I think that's easy enough for us to do, and I think that might make it a clear-cut recommendation, but we'll see what the consultant finds.
Yeah, and I would say, just to put a finer point on that, the real question is now, you know, we just passed S96, and I think it's Act 76 or 78, which is really going to update the way that the water money gets allocated for projects, and how that interacts with stormwater utilities, and whether it sort of creates a pathway for us to work more closely together, or whether it creates challenges. We need some feedback on that from people who are deeper in that policy than any of us are going to be. So if they could, you know, give you a recommendation about your place in that, and I think, you know, we can ask Dominic and Chip and others of the city staff, I would hope to kind of look at where the hurdles and the opportunities in the existing law and what could change it, because I think Tim's right on. There's so many examples of offsite remediation, the ability to do swaps on natural resource impact, and if we can do that with phosphorus projects, we'll be able to spend the money most effectively.
Okay, we'll move on to bike and pedestrian. So do we want Jess to jump in on that one?
I can. Yeah, so I've been updating the town, and you probably saw in the paper we had Mark Fenton, who's this national walkability expert, come and walk through our communities. He also came 3 years ago and walked through the city. This time he spent a little more time in the town, because the city really has done remarkable pedestrian work. The sidewalks look beautiful. And then to back up a little bit more, 2 years ago we did collaborate on a joint grant for Route 7 North. and the consultants came and looked at everything. And our group, the Rise Vermont group, is still meeting to try to move that project forward. But we're also looking at other pedestrian and bikeways as well. But one of the big messages that Mark Fenton had was that bike and ped is really key to the economic growth of a community, because when you have those things in place, not only is it driving people to the community who could pick anywhere in the world to live, it's also encouraging people who live here now to stay here or to move back after they graduate from college or wherever they go off to. And it also, when we make it easy for people who don't have a car or have limited ways to travel places, when we make it easy for them to get their medications or to get to their doctors or their grocery store, the whole community benefits. Our kids will benefit, we'll benefit, and it's just good for the greater health of the community. So I know Bruce left, but we keep talking about, like, how do we move this Route 7 corridor project forward? And then another project that came up, Swanton applied for a grant to look at putting bike lanes along the Quam Shore Road. So that's another sort of opportunity that we're looking at. The governor is coming on the 10th, and he's going to ride his bike from the hospital to the bay, to Swanton, and to Highgate, and then back. And it's an opportunity for us to just talk about why this is important. It's the reason he's coming is Swanton Rec Path hit its 10-year anniversary. So we're going to focus on talking about infrastructure possibilities. So I'm in charge of the Bay stop. If anybody wants to show up, that would be great.
9 o'clock on Saturday?
Saturday.
This
yeah.
Saturday at 9?
August 10th.
August 10th at
Yeah.
9.
You can also ride your bike with him. He's a pretty fast cyclist, I hear, but you can hop on for one leg of it. I think from the hospital to the bay, it's only 4 miles.
Yeah.
That's best leg to do.
Yeah. I've been trying to brainstorm. I think Brendan's definitely going to speak. We're going to do a little demonstration on the Quam Shore. When Mark Fenton came, he talked about a very low-cost way to make it safer for bikers and walkers. And it's pretty much, you have to think way outside the box because it hasn't been done in Vermont. It's been done in other places, but you remove the middle striping from the road, and then you put 2 5-foot paths along the shoulders. So when walkers and bikers are in those paths, they have the right of way. If cars are coming, they can use those paths for their cars. But if there's a walker here and 2 cars, they have to stop, wait till one passes, and then go around the biker. They're called advisory shoulders. So it's a little bit different than what we've seen, but we had Alan and the town on board to do a demonstration while the governor's here. So we're working on that, partnering with Local Motion because they've done these things before.
Jess, I can't help but think, isn't that common sense that if you have a biker on the side of the road and 2 cars, that one will slow down and...
They generally do. I mean, I run on the Quam Shore all the time, and generally that is the culture. A car, if I'm coming, they'll stop. If another car's coming in the opposite direction, wait, and then go around. But there are a few who do not. But I think, I love the McQuam Shore project, but I also think it's so important to keep moving that Route 7 project forward because that's really serving the people who are walking to work or don't have a car and the people who really need it in our community.
Yeah, I don't know that I travel Route 7 North when I do not see someone walking on the shoulder of the road. I think that's...
All year.
Doesn't matter. All year, any time of the day.
Any weather.
Any weather.
They're so dangerous.
It's terrifying.
There's so many different strategies we have to get people from the city line where the sidewalk ends, around those businesses, really before the curb or Energizer, where we have so many right-of-way issues and a lot of parking lots where sidewalks would really be an interference. And I think we've heard from those business owners, the few of them that there are, there's the possibility of, going up the rail trail and circling back down Franklin Park West and having sidewalk networks already there to meet people. We just have to wrap our heads around a cost-effective way to, because a lot of it is city residents walking to work. But still, we want them to be safe in the town. We want the town's people to have the ability to...
It may not be just necessarily going to work. It may be going out to
shop.
Walmart or the stores out there, or McDonald's or whatever.
Yeah, it could
Are we
be-
doing something up at Hardak too? Or? getting some kind of pedestrian traffic up on Hardhack?
We're hoping to, yeah.
What are we doing?
We're recognizing that as we look to increase the activities up at Hardhack, it's kind of a no-brainer to run the sidewalk down. So Carrie and I talked earlier today about opportunities, and I'd put that at the top of the list, you know. It's within sight, it's lower hanging fruit. You know.
I think it's important that we keep that momentum going as people see what changed sidewalks and infrastructure does for a community, whether it's Swanton, whether it's us, whether it's Enosburg, to keep building on it. Somehow keep those projects moving forward, keep talking to people about it. If we pause, then you lose that momentum.
We just redrafted a sidewalk master plan, and that's called our bike and pedestrian master plan, and we're working on the ordinance to accompany it. There's a sidewalk master plan, 2003 or 2004, that gets pointed to a lot. Like, this document will end up like this if we do not. Now, we don't want our round of sidewalk and pedestrian documents to turn into another 2004 sidewalk master plan from the town that turned into absolutely nothing. And we don't have, just 1 second now, we don't have a huge record of actually building any sidewalk infrastructure or pedestrian infrastructure, which makes people a little gun shy to give us grants, I'm sure. But I can say that through pure collaboration, the mayor called me on my cell phone in his capacity as FCIDC director and said, hey, I've got 135, 140 feet of sidewalk. The money's not there to finish it. It's like $8,500. Can the town come in and pay to put the sidewalk in the ground? Because it makes sense. And I called a special meeting. The select board met. We voted to fund it. And the town of St. Albans in the year 2019 paid money to construct a concrete sidewalk within its jurisdiction. So I'd like that to be the icebreaker. And if we can roll that into future projects, and it all stems again from our community or minded mayor who just wanted to see something that made sense happen.
I would say if you haven't been down through the industrial park to see that sidewalk or been on, I would encourage, I mean, it turned out beautifully. And I know the concern when we talk about infrastructure sidewalks in the town is the maintaining of them. And I'd like to think through our conversation with Dom, I think it's senseless for the town to go out and buy the necessary equipment to plow at this stage anyway, when we have enough equipment to manage, and there's not much in the town, but it wouldn't take much for us to manage that moving forward. And I think that's part of the discussion that we should have as well as, and Don, I don't know if you want to touch on that, but I mean, we've invested thousands of dollars into the proper equipment to maintain the new sidewalks, and for us to go from the top of Congress to Hardhack would be minimal. You know, I think there's opportunities for us to work together relative to that piece of it as well.
For sure.
You know, the other piece that I think is ridiculous is, and we should have a conversation, is it's another 130 feet of grass between the top of Fairfield Street across two or three properties where it can connect to another sidewalk going to the Park and Ride and to Hawks Nest and to visiting nurses building. It's just grass space that we should be able, between two communities, figure out how we can finish that sidewalk. And once again, I don't think it's a big deal for the city to plow another 100 yards up the road if we're already on Fairfield Street moving forward.
And then there's Georgia. We just keep on going.
Going to
And there's Georgia.
I'm not sure which sidewalk you'll connect to in Georgia. You show that to me sometime.
I just thought you were on a roll.
Have one from the bank.
In my driveway.
To follow up on Kate's remark, in that we now have two municipal bike path policies, could again, a subcommittee of this group sit down and see where if there's any conflicts or if they're in agreement to matching up so that we have one comprehensive plan. Then in my former life, when we were building sidewalks, we put up a sign saying, this sign is being built by. And it would be nice to have this sign is being built by the community of, or the city and town of, to get to your point of constantly reminding the people that we need the bike paths and that we're working together to get their support.
That's a good idea.
Smart.
When we move on to economic development. I mean, part of a very minor piece of the economic development is I would put a plug in for the Sunflower Festival. The town and city has been working closely on that. If the weather holds and the sunflowers grow, I think it'll be a great event. Carrie's been very active with Alan Nash there, and we're looking at an event in the industrial park and one down the bay, as well as some activities up in the city as well, encouraging shoppers and having a theme and all that. So my vision is if we can, with this one event, if we can attract 1,000 people to St. Albans City and Town, it's a win-win for everyone. And it's one more event that brings people into our community to learn more about our community and who's to say, I had conversations regarding the car show. Tim, I don't know if you made it down this weekend, but Kathy Manahan was more than complimentary about the event and how well it went off, and she had people coming up to her from communities outside the area that said, boy, I wish my community would do stuff like this. And others thought, blocking off Main Street was a home run, and the amount of people downtown was, she estimated about 1,500 throughout the morning, and that's just one event. With the Sunflower Fest, there's a band, and hopefully people are going to go out to eat afterwards and go to Bayside. And
What's the date of that again?
the date of that would be August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Thank you.
So.
Shameless plug.
So I think that's just a minor piece of the May Day is another one. It brings a lot of people into the community, people staying at the hotel, buying gas, food, all that. So
I think you're short selling yourself on the Sunflower Festival. Now, who here on social media remembers last summer when everybody and their brother and their sister had a picture of themselves standing in that one field full of sunflowers? Everybody. Didn't matter what age they were. People from 6 to 60 were enjoying themselves, taking a picture in that field. And as we see that trickle into Franklin County and surrounding areas, you're going to get attention from, I hate to be the millennial in the room, but you'll have people from Montreal that want a cool picture for their social media page driving to St. Albans, whether or not it's to stand in front of a field in the industrial park and then get in their car and leave remains to be seen. But I think you'll get that amount of traffic as this grows into the future.
I posted it on my Instagram.
I'm proud of you. No, I really think that's going to be the next
But
big thing.
to that point, the one who deserves credit on this is Scott Magnan.
Very much
Scott
so.
Magnan is the one who planted the field last year, who opened it up to the general public, had 1,400 people attend, and he was looking to include the city and town and make it a bigger event than what it was. And I think if the weather holds, I think you're going to see a strong turnout. I think it'll be good for the region. So
Very much so.
Events like those, as both communities continue to do things like that, I think would be an easy place for us to collaborate, because there are ways that both municipalities can support and promote those events together, and even just planning so that you're taking sort of a coordinated approach, not planning events on top of each other. I think about things like the farmers market. It's so cool that there's one on Wednesday nights and there's one on Saturday mornings. That's perfect. You'd hate to have them both happening Saturday mornings, right? So if we thought together on things like that, maybe a year in advance, they'd be even stronger.
Absolutely.
So put my FCIDC cap on, but I was up in St. John last week meeting with Chamber and Tourism departments from the community of St. John sur Richelieu, and we are going to do a number of cross-border initiatives. Some may be as simple as doing soccer and baseball exchanges, youth sports exchanges, but also I haven't reached out to the farmers market, but have them come down and set up a table promoting their area, and we go to St. John on a Saturday at their farmers market promoting St. Albans as a region as well. So we're building that relationship. For those who don't know, we're starting to really push for a regional approach. You know, St. Albans doesn't have enough, in my opinion, to really captivate someone for a lengthy period of time. But when you include St. John and the southern Quebec area and the vineyards and everything else, the small towns, the region within 30 miles, 40 miles really has a lot to bring people and really sell it as a region. We're not going as high as Montreal, and we're not going as south as Burlington. We're looking at Franklin, Grand Isle, and southern Quebec to really push the region and try to educate people. So that's another initiative that I think would prove to be valuable.
Very much so.
I don't know are you finished with those things? I have another topic, economic. Carrie and I belong to the Women Working, I forget the name of the title. Anyway, it's this group of people that are looking at the lack of employees in Franklin County and what we need to attract people into the workforce. And statistically, the group that we have that is easiest to tap are women who are home taking care of children. And if we could have decent childcare, we could open up, expand the opportunity, or have jobs that are going unfilled, filled. My thought is that, again, we should invite the superintendent into this conversation because, one, the education department already does a great deal of study and understanding all the rules and regulations for childcare from 0 up through high school. And it's important that we can get people, if we have a good childcare system, you're going to bring in this industry in, you're going to fill the jobs that what we can, you're going to increase the economy. I mean, it just mushrooms out and out and out. I think it's important that we as government officials start thinking that maybe the government has to start taking on the responsibilities with the school district, which is the government, to expand our educational services from 0 to 18 or 19, whatever it is.
Sounds like you got a little birdie in you.
I do, but you talk about you want the children to come back. What better way than to have families coming here, but also knowing of the supports we have. And again, I'm not from here, and I do miss not having that relationship that you have with all the people that you attended school with. That if kids are going from 0 to 16, they have unbelievable friendships that they want to sustain. They need employment to stay here. I was talking to a young lady today who graduated from UVM and got a job as a Vista worker. And she was fortunate, as she said, to find a job in Burlington. And so she's going to stay in Vermont. Well, to me, we have to make those opportunities.
So while we have Kevin here, so Kevin, the one issue that I've heard is that, and this isn't directed just at schools, but she works in Burlington till 5. By the time she gets out of downtown Burlington, she can't get back into St. Albans till 6 o'clock. The rec program shuts down at 5:30. After school programs 4:30, and there's a half-hour gap that it just doesn't. She's trying to fill and trying to figure out. And there just aren't those opportunities for those parents that have to travel and can't get back in time to pick up at 5 or 5:30. So that's a void that she wanted me to sort of share with some of the committee work going on in terms of childcare, the formidable 4. That's a discussion that's happened, and that's an area that seems to be we're falling short on, is that late pickup time.
In another community, it was the recreation department and the school district that worked together, where the recreation department funded all the employees, and the school district gave the facilities to the recreation department from 4 until, or actually when school got out at 3, until 6 o'clock at night. And so that allowed parents from Burlington to get up to their hometown to pick up the children. at 6. And if it needed be, somebody would stay with the child until the parents were able, if there was a traffic accident, to get there. I think we have to extend those hours because it is impossible if you're traveling long, just 30 miles.
There's a lot of parents who would pay for that, to take the burning out of it.
Yes, yes. Well, there was payment to the municipality for the child care services on a graduated basis.
May I speak?
Sure.
I quite agree with all of that. One issue I would ask is if any of you have any pull to keep the legislator clause off of things and let us do some work. We might be able to do that, but we've got funding issues relative to Act 166 and other issues that the legislature has put what I consider poor laws in place. We would like to do more with that 3 to 4-year-olds. And we'd like to, I've actually got a meeting next week with some partners who are looking at possibly doing something after school a little bit later, as you mentioned. Though a lot of it you just mentioned is funding. But we are looking into it. And, if we could do more, we will.
But I think we need to be a partner with the school district. It's not, I don't think we put it all on the school district.
Well, I think when you talk about the rec department and school working together, there's.
You also get the YMCA.
Well,
That could be involved.
we've got the partnerships pretty much in the making in a lot of areas.
Agreed.
The mayor and I took a tour of the Wise Time Childcare, and I didn't really realize how robust the programming is at that facility. And when I think about the model of childcare, so this facility is at the federal immigration building here, and it's a YMCA-run childcare facility that is absolutely the best quality and has a 5-star rating from the state. And a very high percentage of the children who go there, and even higher percentage than the facility that the Y runs in Burlington, are receiving subsidies for that, for their tuition there. So it's a real jewel that I think a lot of people overlook because of where it is.
Do you have to work for immigration?
No, not at all. So that's a really important thing to understand is that anybody, and because the feds put up the money for that facility, they kind of have first come, first serve there. But it's a very low percentage of the folks who work there that actually require that childcare. So there's a few of those slots are always there, but they have the majority of their waiting list is people from outside of that actual facility. They're not all employees that work there. And that's another thing I asked when I went, because I assumed that the majority of those slots were federal employees, but that's not the case. So it was fascinating. I think we both learned a lot and saw a great example of a facility that's there for one thing that is being used because they had space and resources to provide that childcare service. And that's the gap that we have. And there's more state funding than there has been in the past now. And I think the legislature is committed to creating opportunities to expand childcare services. So I'd love to talk with the superintendent more about what the legislature can do to help out.
I'd be glad to.
Careful what you wish for. You might just
I'm tight with Kate Webb now. We'll see how much we can, the chair of the education committee, we'll see if we can.
Anyone have any other comments on economic development?
I have one. We're at 2 very interesting points in each of our municipalities. The town, before errors and omissions in the fall, we're at about $1 billion, $1,022,000 on our grand list. That's what we're locked for right now. That was a big milestone for us. That represented a great deal of growth, a large percentage of which came from the industrial park and its expansions. We just witnessed Peerless, Barry Callebaut, Ben and Jerry's. Am I leaving anybody off who expanded? That added a significant dollar amount to our grand list. We realize in our planning that we are not going to see that type of growth sustained over time unless Tim is a guru and brings in one factory every 2 years. I mean, we're just not going to see it. In the city,
We prefer not to use the word factory anymore.
manufacturing facility.
Thank you.
Sorry, and it's kind of like trailer versus manufactured home in my industry. Sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. And the city's at its own interesting crossroads in the fact that it's been its largest developer sustained for almost a decade now. After the Maiden Lane Congress project, what's next? Dominic's already got it lined up. I just asked him the question no more than maybe 90 minutes ago. We gotta take care of Fonda. We gotta do something on Kingman. You know, the sky's the limit for you guys. I mean, you're doing everything you can to revitalize your community, and I think we're starting to look at that as to our own municipal assets and brick and mortar and what we need to do to set ourselves up better operationally and financially into the future. But what can we do to attract not only homeowners who are gonna come and build a house and add $200,000 to $400,000 at a whack to our grand list? What can we do to attract a manufacturing facility or a job creator or something like an industry? I mean, where are the Mylans to be found? Where are the Ben and Jerry's? Where are the Peerlesses? Where are, you know, the Superior Technical Ceramics? Like, where can we go and find more? And I think you've seen it a little bit with the microbrew scene in St. Albans, which is just, it should be the envy of every neighboring community we have. But where can we go and what can we do together to attract businesses, people that are going to add jobs and really grow our grand lists? I mean, that's where I think on economic development we have to really rack our brains. What can we do? Is there a way that we can, you know, relax fees in certain areas that we want to drive development to? What can we do outside of the box to say, come to St. Albans, we are serious, we want you, come here. You see it in other parts of the country. They designate an area, maybe it goes across municipal borders, maybe it doesn't, and they say, if you locate here, we'll give you a tax break, or we'll waive this fee for 5 years, or it'll be on a graduated schedule. I mean, where can we go to get to that level of thinking, to be able to make sure that we grow into the future?
Well, what do you think? I mean, are you gonna think that if they build it, they will come? Because the problem that I see with industry coming into the St. Albans area is there's a lack of workforce. And I find that, I sometimes I find that mind-boggling, and I have a lot of clients who are managers and supervisors, and they say, you know, we can't find anybody, we can't find anybody. People are leaving us, you know, as fast as they come in, they're gone the next day. And they don't have a trained workforce. And a lot of people can't go to Milan, and a lot of people can't go to Superior Ceramics or some of the other big industries because they can't pass the physical test. Not the physical test meaning strength, meaning the physical test medical, because of addictions or past records or things like that. So if we don't have programs to train those individuals and then let business know that we have some individuals that are worthy of employment and have recuperated from the things that beguiled them in the past, then there's no sense. Because no one's gonna come here without a workforce.
That's the type of outside the box thinking that I was hoping to have somebody come up with. Like, I'm not saying that taxes and fees are the basis that every business evaluates an acquisition, a merger, or a location. Like, that type of programming to grow our workforce, whether it's in a city-town Maple Run or city-town initiative, whether or not the state plays a part of that, maybe the legislature could help find some funding to kickstart something along those lines. I mean, we have treatment centers that would make an easy location to recruit into a program like that. I mean, I think you're already starting to see a lot of it with, you know, addiction treatment, you know, daily. With, you hear a lot of construction agencies say, you know, we have a good percentage of our workforce that goes to the clinic in the morning, but the tools are still there at the end of the day and they come back on time the next day. You know, that's a program that was really a state initiative that's been successful. So maybe we need to come up with our own grassroots St. Albans programming that would work in a similar
Will you
fashion.
provide the training, don't you, Kevin, up at the tech center? Are there any requirements that are there that limit the ability of the people to go in and utilize those services?
You mean the adult ed services?
Yeah.
So how do we
But it's
promote
kind
that?
of, you build it, they will come, we have, but we get so many, but, you know, we've got capacity, if people wanted it, it's there.
Just to couple your comments, Tim, I think in some cases you build it and they'll come is true. Currently, if you look through travel throughout Franklin County, we do not have a vacant building to speak of. Someone wants 10,000 square feet, there's no building to be had. So I think if we had something to show, we would have filled it 5 times over by now. Workforce is definitely one of the initial questions. I'm a firm believer that, we have 10,000 people getting on the interstate and traveling south every day to go to work. And I think if we attract the right employees, paying the right wages, with the right benefits, you will start pulling some of those commuters in off the interstate where they can save an hour and a half a day in travel time, wear and tear on the car. If they're getting the same pay, getting the same benefits, that's our opportunity. That's our opportunity to keep them here, but a lot of people are in the comfort zone, how do you get them to the point where they make the change? But I think that, I don't think we're gonna train our way out of it. I think it's more of a recruitment piece to get them out of Tippecanoe County back in Franklin County.
Tim, what's the reverse number of that?
Reverse, so you got 10,000 going out and 4,500 coming in, so we're a net loss of about 6,500 leaving the county.
But where I see a lot of opportunity, and maybe this is because it's my commute, but the 4,500 that are coming in and creating the incentives, and you said it before you were mayor, give us a reason to live here. And I think something that checks all these boxes is the recreational amenities. I look at Hardak and I look at the uniqueness of that area and the fact that it's shared by both communities. And I think, boy, what an opportunity to build a recreational amenity that helps create that additional reason to just live closer to where your job is. Those 4,500 already, we've already got the hook into them. If we could convince them to move, that feels like low-hanging fruit.
The Bay, Collins Pearly.
Yeah.
But I think one of the biggest problems, Tim, we're seeing, it's not first shift operation. People, the manufacturer, he's got to use his equipment now because of the cost, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I don't, after talking to a lot of management people, the problem is not first shift. The large turnover is second and third.
People do not want to work.
You
those
just
shifts.
can't keep them.
Like, not only keep them, people just don't want to.
They don't want
to sign up for it.
Because they can do something else in the Burlington area on days. I'm not gonna work nights. And right now, it's been mandatory overtime, like most jobs, because you're short and affects the family life, so especially out working nights. And there's no childcare services at second and third shift, so either the husband has gotta stay home or the wife's gotta stay home, and so we gotta figure out how to get, and you were touching on it about the kids graduating from high school. If they knew they could go into a production job and make the money. I talked to one of my sons, and the guy's been out of high school for 5 years with profit sharing at the company. He's taking in $65,000 a year, which is good money. Very good.
5 years out of high school.
Huh?
5 years out of high school.
5 years out of high school. So it's.
Who's his agent?
Yeah. But he's kid kept his nose clean and done everything he was asked, and getting third shift premium, working all the overtime.
You can go get a CDL, write your own paycheck
Oh, yeah,
in Franklin County. That's a whole other part of it.
No, there's opportunity.
There's opportunity here. It's how do we market it?
Right, so to the marketing, Tim, several years ago, we had, in the town city hall, there was a fair of children's science experiments. And Kathy LaVoy headed it up, you and Kathy LaVoy headed it up. I don't remember the name of it or who did it, but to me, if we start again getting young people interested in science, STEM issues, and we add them to our award ceremony, not only athletics but into the academics, but also have fairs of what children, MVU did it, I was up at MVU last year, where they have the kids put on their experiments and demonstrate. We need to promote children more and more and more. But to me, that also gets the parents interested in the community and then why they should support us and stay. But then I'm thinking of Ben and Jerry's and Superior Ceramics. Those were local people that had an idea. I mean, they were Burlington, Ben and Jerry's were. But I think some of our growth will come from innovative kids.
No,
Yes, they're 20 years down the line, but they'll be here.
The program you're referring to is the STEM Challenge Initiative, where we award grants
Okay, yeah.
to,
But that's sort of, I haven't seen any advertisements for that recently.
the banquet was April 4th.
Really?
Yeah, so it's once a year in April, we do the banquet where we summarize, the grant recipients come in and present their findings and what they use the money for and all that, so. But it's, we had 75 people show up. We should be getting more than that for sure.
Yeah, I wish I had known it because I would have come. I find it fascinating what these kids are doing.
I'll put you on the mailing list.
Thank you.
Anything else for economic development?
I guess my only question is, where do you want to take this issue from here? We talked about childcare, passing medical screenings, recruiting people, training people. How do we turn that into some type of future conversation or action?
I guess I look to Dom and Carrie to
Yeah.
move that conversation forward, and if you want any of us to sit in on that and just have a roundtable discussion on it and see where we want to move forward.
And you've got different experts in the room on different subjects. You've got a lawyer, you've got a real estate broker, you've got an economic development guru here. You've got a former town manager, healthcare, you've got, so pull from your resources. You've got, Stanley, how many years? How many years managing and manufacturing?
A lot.
30. Pull from that, I guess.
Okay, so let's move on to other business, and I think we just have one item under other business, and that is Major Zach Fike, if you want to come forth. I thought I invited Major to come. I think it's something that's very relevant to community. It came up when Kate's son showed up looking for more place to play. Major is now in charge of the local armory, and we had a great conversation about how we can interact more as a community, more in honoring our veterans between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And so he has some activities coming forth that I think we're on a tight timeline, so that's why I'm invited the Major to come tonight. So thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no problem, sir. Thank you. Tim gave me 2 hours to speak, so if you want to get up and stretch, use the restroom. No, those were some tough acts to follow. I don't arrest people. I don't have good fishing analogies. I definitely can't ski. Swim like a rock. So you're not going to give me any awards tonight. But I just simply came here to say hi. Like Tim said, I'm the new administrative officer, so the operations officer for 1st Squadron, 172nd Cavalry Regiment, which is basically the Armory. If you don't know where the Armory is, it's the big green tank. We've been around for a long time. We started off as the Ransom Guard back in 1856, which was a local militia, and we've been going strong ever since. We have not only soldiers within this community, but every community across the state. This regiment is essentially broken out just beyond St. Albans to many communities: Bennington, Enosburg, Swanton, Newport, and Lyndonville. So we have companies that make up that battalion across the state. So we pretty much touch every corner. We're about 400 strong. That fluctuates, obviously, with recruiting throughout the year. But we have community members that are based right here in St. Albans, to include myself. We're not only wearing the uniform full-time, but they're also business owners within the communities. I don't know if you know Purple Hearts United. It's an international foundation that I started, a nonprofit. We return lost or stolen military medals. We're housed out of the American House. I pay my rent at 10, so he told me we're on time, so we're good. But we employ 3 Vermonters. I'm a business associate of 14 Star. We have over 20 employees there. And with some of the original founders of 14 Star, we just opened up a distillery here on Lake Street down by the sheriff's office. We're not selling out of that space, we're just manufacturing at this point. We hope to have just as many employees as 14 Star does now. But right now, it's free labor between the 3 owners, and we're currently making bourbon. So, you know, I took those life lessons learned in the military. I've been in for 21 years, traveled the world. I've got free education out of it, and it allowed me to do what I'm doing now in the community with my businesses on the side and to hire Vermonters. So definitely an outlet. You talk about outlets, definitely a discussion for the future, and I'd be happy to help you guys facilitate that, of the opportunities here in the military. I think that's a great way to keep Vermonters local. They have a sense of pride, a sense of home protection, and they're going to learn those valuable skills through free education to essentially start businesses here local. And I think that's an untapped resource. That's evident with not only the Vermonters leaving the state, but the number of Vermonters not joining the Guard. We're at a record low the last 5 years, and it's pretty scary because the Army, I was a C-level student in high school. My guidance counselor said I'd admit to nothing, which was kind of a shocking thing to say to a young man at 18. But I think I've done pretty good, and I attribute that to the military. Something we haven't done recently is engage in the community. We've been very busy with our op-tempo. We've had some major training exercises out of state, and it's just kept us really focused on training. And we've lost the art of engaging with the community. I think it attributes to us being deployed over the last 20 years in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we've just lost that art. Talking to people, engaging in the community is not easy. I think you're all, examples of that. You're all community leaders, and it takes confidence to come out and engage with people. So we're going to try to change that here in St. Albans. At least during my tenure, we want to engage with you more. We want to assist you in your events here locally, and we want to open up the Armory to your needs if you have them. There is an official process. I'll make sure Tim gets that process so that you all have it. It's a simple request form that you send up to the Adjutant General's office. If they approve it at their level, they'll send it down to me and say, Zach, support this group. I challenge you all to have maybe your next meeting or one of your meetings in the future at our Armory, so you can come in and see how we live and how we work. It's an old building. It was built in 1914, so probably isn't what you envision. Some of you have probably been in there. We do the best we can with the funding available, but I challenge you to come in there and have your meeting, and might be a new environment for you to see and experience. With one of those community engagement projects in August, I'm going to challenge this community to, one, attend our event on August 11th, which is a Sunday at 11 o'clock. We are going to essentially narrate our history. We're going to start there at the Civil War. We're going to go to, actually, we're going to start with the Revolutionary War because many men from this area served during that time period. But we as an organization started in the Civil War. We'll move to World War I, World War II, Iraq, Afghanistan, and finish with what modern reconnaissance looks like. Our squadron is a reconnaissance battalion, so we are the eyes and ears, if you remember like the old school cavalry on horseback, we are the eyes and the ears for the military. So we go out, we listen to the enemy, we observe them, we report on them, and then we able to basically give the commander the ability to bear the full weight of the Army on them. So that's really what we do. With that, it's about a 45-minute demonstration. We'll have actual soldiers dressed in full regalia, whether it's reenactors from the Revolutionary War or the Civil War, to include modern day our soldiers, guys like me, in uniform, face paint, the whole 9 yards. We'll talk about when we started, what we do during each of those time periods, and hopefully put on a nice demonstration for the community and the families of our soldiers. We're trying to have a family day event. My kids will love it. They're 5 and 4. Anything to do with horses and guys in camo, they're there. So please come to that event. It's open for anyone. But the real challenge, and I'd like your help to do so, is there was a photo in 1919 taken on June 7th, which was the Honor Day Parade. Some of you have seen this in Town Hall. Is it Town Hall or City Hall?
City Hall.
City Hall, sorry. it basically passed us around. It was the city/town, because I bet you that's everybody from both. It was their way to celebrate the end of the Great War, as well as honor the soldiers who fought. I would imagine there's about 1,000 people in that photo, and it happened 100 years ago. We would like to recreate that photo on the 11th at noon. So we've already started the coordination with the local police to shut down Main Street, only for about 20 minutes, so no major panic. We'll have all of our soldiers, probably around 200 to 300 soldiers present, and we would love to fill that background with as many citizens from the town and city as possible, to include promoting the local businesses. If you look at some of the signage in the group, you got the local unions that have their signs. We want the businesses to come out and show their support, have them bring a sign. We're okay with that. Bring flags, bring your children, whatever it may be, come out and let's recreate this. I think that's a piece of history that'll last another 100 years, but we can't do it without your support. Not asking for anything, not asking for sponsorships, just asking you to spread the message. Let everyone know when they get out of church on Sunday, walk down to Main Street, you'll see a big gaggle, get in line, and I'll probably be narrating on a bullhorn telling you to go left, right, and smile for your mom, and we'll take that photo together as a community. I think that's something, it's a legacy that we often overlook, to capture those moments in our history. Here we are at 100 years since the Great War ended, and I think it'd be a very stoic moment for both the community and the military to re-engage, get to know each other, meet each other, and we're gonna be cooking hot dog and hamburgers, so at the least you can come out and get a good meal. That's it for me. I don't want to take up most of your time. What I would suggest before I get to questions, I'm available for these meetings. I would like to attend more and maybe represent the local guard and the state guard. As far as initiatives, I can give you briefings on what we did for drill. I can tell you what initiatives are at the state level at the headquarters, just for your general essay, or just be here to answer questions that you may have. So I'd like to offer that to you if that's okay. I can just pop in for a few minutes like the sheriff, and you can rattle my brain, and I can tell you what we did last month and go from there. But I'll open the questions.
2 questions. You said the state guard versus the federal guard?
Yes, sir.
So you're the state guard, not the federal?
Well, we have a state guard. They come and have their meetings at our armory, but we can tie into those, sir. So initiatives on their level, which is pretty much supporting us. But anything the tag is directing, anything initiatives he has at the senior levels between the Army and the Air Guard, I might not be able to speak to specifics, but I can share the central overview of what's going on. At the least, I can tell you what the local soldiers are doing.
Okay, and I'm a veteran, so what degree do you reach out to veterans?
Yes, sir.
I'm a veteran. How are you going to reach out to veterans to support your mission?
Yeah, it's a challenge, sir. Our relationship with the VFW, the American Legion, has been up and down over the years. As you know, it's hard. Young men and women with their own families, it's a lot of time. Some of us commit ourselves more than others, but we want you guys to participate. You've been there, you've done that. We would love to have open houses with veterans. We're gonna have some of those where you can come and share your experiences here locally and across the state. You're the guy I'm looking to learn. So we definitely are open to that. Getting out to those pancake breakfasts and things like that. We've done a bad job at it, and we got to get better. But I think opening the armory and experiencing those events with you will change that culture.
Yeah, I agree. It would be fun to open the armory. The last one was personal. I'm a veteran valet at the hospital.
Okay, perfect.
And we need more veteran valets.
Sure.
Is there any way you could help us? We have no women veterans.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass out this flyer, which has more details on the event. Please pass that out. My contact information is at the bottom of that.
Maybe I'll stop in.
Shoot me a note, sir, and just tell me essentially what you're looking for. Whether it's through my personal businesses, my nonprofit, or the military. I know a lot of veterans who just cross paths. So I'll do my best to help.
Great, I'd like to come and talk to you.
That'd be great, sir. Come by I'm there every day, Monday through Friday. The door is open.
Okay.
In the past, it's been closed. I challenge you just to come on by, have some coffee, sit in my office, chat, ask questions. I'll give you a tour, whatever you want to do. But we're there. If you see the doors open,
Come on.
feel free to go on.
Al, does your uniform still fit?
No.
I was about to say, we will recruit you and you will not leave. I'll have you do a push-up before you leave.
So I just want to, one last thing
Thank
is, Tim had expressed, I guess I safe to say, disappointment on, I shared this with you, with the most recent Memorial Day celebration we had in town, and I think both city and town, we need to engage better in honoring those who have served, past, present, and moving forward future. The ceremonies from Memorial Day and Veterans Day should be larger than what they are. Major is more than willing to assist in growing that. You know, Tim just mentioned tonight about Kevin possibly having the city school or the town bands participate in those parades other than just BFA. Is that something? But just start growing the parade a little bit. Try to increase attendance. Try to be a little more thoughtful on how we do those ceremonies moving forward. I also had the opportunity to run into General Knight, who's the head of the Air National Guard, and he's more than willing to assist us as well in planning those ceremonies moving forward. One thing I mentioned to him was potentially a flyby, and I think that would be great. But he's more than willing. Major's more than willing. I think as far as the city council goes, we want to try to put a little more effort into it and try to improve what it once was. So it'd be great to have the town jump in on that as well and see if we can improve those.
And I think in a lot of these projects, especially with the major, we could include the St. Albans Museum.
Yeah, I made it.
We should have you over at a board of trustees meeting and really talk about how we could work together to.
Yep,
I mean, they're neighboring.
They've been very helpful. We're actually going through a naming convention change. We're actually going to call ourselves Ransom again. So we're going to go back to our forefathers and essentially re-honor that name. So through the museum, we learned about George Conger. He was the second lieutenant of the unit. Obviously, you've heard the story of his saber and artifacts. His third grandson will come to this event in August. And with that saber, he'll essentially bless us as the new ransom guard. So, incorporating local history, incorporating the museum, like you said, this is a team effort, and we really need to be coordinated going forward.
And if you have an event, pass the information along to us. It's nothing for us to put your events on our municipal Facebook pages or whatever followings we do have.
I can put it on my Instagram.
Yeah, put it. You can put it on
Tweet it. Tweet it out.
His Facebook profile does not have a profile picture. We should fix that.
He promises his 2 followers will be at every function.
He's gonna do the sunflower.
He has 3 kids, so it's 3.
Does anyone have any other questions for Major?
Yes, sir.
I know you're Army.
It's an Army thing. Where are you?
Army,
Okay, good man.
but we can't forget the Navy or the Coast Guard
It's true.
or Air Force.
Yeah, if you look at that picture,
But the Marines.
it's actually pretty
Yeah.
neat. There's actually sailors and a Marine in there. So you're absolutely right. Again, we're an open community now. We haven't been in a couple of years. With those requests, again, keep in mind, we're a small community. We have about 12 full-timers in the armory. So if you want to do something late in the evenings, we just got to have notice, because that's Zach Fike not going home. That's me staying and keeping the armory open. So willing to do it, just give us notice and try not to overwhelm us too much. But we want more interaction. We've got the basketball hoops back up, so we like the kids to get in there.
Yeah.
Oliver putting in his requests.
During the day is easier for us, obviously, because we have full manning. But we're willing to do after hour events. Just get those requests in, and I'll make sure he knows how to do that.
So how do you feel about daycare?
Talk to my wife.
Along those lines, though, the schools are looking to expand their walk to school program, and they need responsible adults. And it'd be so cool to walk with the school.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely.
That'd be a good way to integrate with
great
kids.
Absolutely. I don't think we interact in any business enough with our children. My fondest memories growing up was going to work with my dad. He was in the Army too, and he would just yell at soldiers. I don't know why I was fascinated by that. My My mom was one of their first female drill sergeants in the Army, so I got away with nothing growing up. But those are my fondest memories, so I challenge myself to bring my kids every week, you know, even if it's for a few hours. So if you have children, you want to bring them by, I will not recruit them. I'm not a recruiter, so be easy. But yeah, bring them by. My kids love running around the Arbor. It's like one of the coolest buildings, 3 floors. You can get lost in there, you can play hide and seek. Bring them by during the day. We'll let them run loose for an hour. They'll be all tired. They'll go to sleep on time. We'll all be happy.
That's daycare.
It sounds like a
Sounds like a great
And I won't even charge them.
Thank you for coming in, appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no problem.
We will definitely take advantage of you as a partner.
Sure.
And move forward, so.
Sounds good. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Any other business for anyone before we adjourn?
No, just our next meeting.
Yeah, no.
Sometime we need to talk about hockey rinks and indoor athletic fields and things like that. I know there's a lot of talk going on in the community and a lot of different committees. And I think, from my point of view, we're starting to coalesce into one huge idea that meets the needs of many, many interest groups. So, not to get bogged down at 8 o'clock, but I think we need to talk about that sometime in the future.
Thank you, Alan. I think the last thing we might have had is just, police contracts coming up in
Next year.
September
We had an option year. So I think
It's a year from that.
Well, it expires the end of 20, right?
Correct. June.
This is just annual renewal. I mean, just,
and it's an option.
right.
We have an option year.
Next year is where you renegotiate.
or one
We
more year.
want, we want everything we get now, but cheap.
Pardon?
One more year.
One more
Yes.
year, is my understanding.
Well, first they can say no, right?
That's where you get started.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
What do we
I
want to do
just,
next?
I just want to thank Brendan and Tim for putting this together and for everyone for coming. I think this is great. It's been about 10 years since I've done one of these, so it's good to get together with everyone in the room. I am going to send Brendan the bill for expanding the doors so Tim can get his head in the city
I know.
hall.
Well, that's,
Man, we're not as nice to him.
Yeah, I know. I gotta keep him around.
Next meeting, you
I
said?
thought the current.
Now, when do we want to meet
I
again?
say we leave it up to Carrie and Dawn.
Yeah.
Carrie and Dominic.
We're talking about this, I'm so sorry.
We'll let you guys figure out the next
Yes.
guy.
Bring us back together.
Yeah.
Sooner the
But
better.
wait. Since we're the supervisors, we should give them a timeline. When do they get back to us?
I have faith in our leader. for a time.
Wow. Just love it.
Yeah.
I have faith in Carrie.
Yeah.
Oh, I
We do too.
I do too.
What's your preference?
Now
3
would be-
months,
well-
6 months?
Quickly.
I think when there's business to be had, when there's an agenda, when there's enough stuff on the agenda, I don't want to get together just for the sake of getting together, but if there's things that we can talk about for an hour to an hour and a half, I
Let's
think
do it.
then we'll come back together.
It seems to me we've already got that agenda set. We've talked about many things that we follow up. Put it this way, I will move that we meet again within 2 months or by mid-September, or October, whatever 2 months is.
Maybe we start forming some subcommittees of this group or other assigns to begin working on some other issues further. Because we can't, it's not sustainable to think that we're gonna be able to meet once a month
Right.
and fit that in everybody's schedule, and I understand. One other point to make is the town just renewed its contract with Carrie for 4 more years. She'll be our manager, 4 more years, so congratulations to Carrie,
Thank you.
and we're glad to have you. And,
Delighted.
yeah, thank you. So,
Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Al, second? Second. And with that, all those in favor, say aye.
can I use my gavel?
Perfect.
Perfect.
That's it. You bring that?
Carrie.